Hello, my name is Rita Dove, and it is my pleasure to introduce this performance of the Kreutzer Sonata. But the piece you're about to hear almost didn't get written, and the violinist for whom the Kreutzer Sonata was composed and who premiered it in Vienna with Beethoven at the piano was not named Kreutzer. In fact, he had all but disappeared from history when I stumbled upon him. But let me set the stage. It's spring in Vienna, 1803. Beethoven, in the middle of composing his third symphony, the Eroica, had just returned from a restorative sabbatical in Heiligensee. No one knows that he is battling with encroaching hearing loss, and he is worried about negotiating the clamor of musicians in the city. And so enter the unlikeliest fellow, a mixed-race violinist by the name of George Polgreen Bridgetower, recently arrived from England, whose playing is so fantastic that Beethoven drops everything to compose a sonata for this 23-year-old mulatto who becomes its first interpreter. Those were all the facts I had when I began the research that eventually became this book, Sonata Mulatica, which tracks Beethoven's friendship with Bridgetower and Bridgetower's sensational rise and fall from grace, a fall that was allegedly precipitated by a saucy comment about a girl to which Beethoven took offense. And I do this through a series of poems. But it was what lay beneath this thin scrim of facts that fascinated the poet in me. And so the very first poem in the book gives you all the facts, the better to consider all the steps, missteps, and sidesteps made along the way. One side note. Why, you may ask, did Beethoven decide to compose such a daring sonata precisely at this juncture in his journey toward deafness? And how, with his failing hearing, was he able to accompany Bridgetower at its premiere? Well, one theory is based on first-hand accounts of Bridgetower as a very flamboyant performer, so much so his extravagant movements could have provided a visual aid for Beethoven, sort of like a human metronome. With that in mind, then, listen closely to the first movement's opening exchange, reminiscent of African musical call and response traditions, and then imagine the conversation that unfolds between the ailing composer and his spirited new friend as they breathe together as one. But first, I will read to you the poem called The Bridgetower. It begins with a quote from Beethoven's original dedication, which was in Italian. Per il mulatto Bridgetower gran pazzo e compositore mulatico, which loosely translated would mean for the mulatto Bridgetower, a great madman and mulatto composer. The Bridgetower. If was at the beginning. If he had been older, if he hadn't been dark, brown eyes ablaze in that remarkable face, if he had not been so gifted, so young a genius with no time to grow up, if he hadn't grown up, undistinguished, to an obscure old age, if the piece had actually been, as Kreutzer exclaimed, unplayable, even after our man had played it, and for years no one else was able to follow, so that the composer's fury would have raged for naught, and wagging tongues could keep alive the original dedication from the title page he shredded. Oh, if only Ludwig had been better looking, or cleaner, or a real aristocrat, fun instead of the unexceptional fawn from some Dutch farmer, if his ears had not already begun to squeal and whistle, if he hadn't drunk his wine from lead cups, if he could have found true love. Then the story would have held. In 1803, George Polgreen Bridgetower, son of Friedrich Augustus, the African prince, and Maria Anna Sowiński of Biala in Poland, traveled from London to Vienna, where he met the great master, who would stop work on his Third Symphony to write a sonata for his new friend to premiere triumphantly on May 24th, whereupon the composer himself leapt up from the piano to embrace his lunatic mulatto. Who knows what would have followed? They might have palled around some, just a couple of wild and crazy guys strutting the town like rock stars, hitting the bars for a few beers, a few laughs, instead of falling out over a girl. Nobody remembers. Nobody knows. Then this bright-skinned papa's boy could have sailed his 15-minute fame straight into the record books, where instead of A. Regina Carter or Aaron Dworkin or Boyd Tinsley sprinkled here and there, we would find rafts of black kids scratching out scales on their matchbox violins so that someday they might play the impossible. Beethoven's Sonata No. 9 in A major, Opus 47, also known as the Bridge Tower.